A devoted nurse is gunned down at her place of work by her ex-boyfriend, an off-duty police officer. This case shook the country, not only because of the brutal manner in which he killed her, but also because of what happened next. The killer survived, paralyzed, and eventually walked out of the court a free man, despite pleading guilty to the murder. This is the story of Lebogang Monene. Let's get into it. Lebogang Vinolia Monene was born on the 27th of December in 1991 in Mokopane in the Limpopo province. At the time of her death, she was 30 years old. Known affectionately as Lebo, she worked as a nurse's assistant at Tembisa Hospital in Gauteng province. Her colleagues described her as always happy and dedicated to her work. She was also a loving mother to two young boys who were aged 3 and 10, one of them fathered by her ex-boyfriend, Muraro Laki Mudau. Lebo and Mudau had been in a long-term relationship, but the relationship had turned toxic. According to Lebo's uncle, Lebo had endured abuse in the relationship, such that each time they got into an argument, the constable would pretend to be looking for his gun so that he could shoot her. So he would always threaten to shoot and kill her. It was this pattern of violence and intimidation that ultimately drove her to end the relationship. But even after the breakup, Mudau allegedly continued to harass her. Her family says that she lived in fear, but was determined to raise her children and continue working at the hospital. On the morning of the 9th of February 2022, the unthinkable happened. Just before 9 a.m., Laki Mudau drove to Tembisa Hospital in a marked police vehicle, carrying his work pistol, although he was off duty. At the hospital gate, he turned on his blue lights, fooling security into believing that he was driving into the hospital on police work. So, of course, they let him in. Once inside, he called Lebo on the phone and asked to meet at the parking lot. What they talked about on the phone is not known. Only he knows what he said to her, perhaps to convince her to agree to meet him. As soon as Lebo approached, in full view of the public, of staff, of patients, he pulled out his service pistol and shot her at least 7 times. And although he did this at a medical facility where she could have received life-saving medical care, shooting her as many times as he did sealed her fate, and Lebo died at the scene. Immediately after that, Mudau turned the gun on himself. It is reported in one report that he shot himself 4 times, first on the arm, the leg, the chest, and the neck. I personally have never heard of someone that had shot themselves as many times as Mudau did. It is also surprising to me how, if he intended to kill himself, he did not shoot himself on the head. Only he knows the answers to that. Nonetheless, he survived and was actually, even though he did this in a hospital, he was airlifted to another hospital where it was discovered that the self-inflicted injuries, although did not cause his death, were catastrophic, particularly on the spinal cord, leaving him a C5 quadriplegic, meaning that he was paralyzed from the neck down and would be unable to perform any other function except move his neck muscles from side to side. He did retain his speech and hearing though, but of course unable to carry out basic human tasks. The shooting, as you can imagine, sent shockwaves through the medical community in South Africa, especially among nurses, who many of her colleagues on that morning had just begun their shift for the day. The hospital where Lebo worked became the same place where she took her last breath. Her father, upon hearing of the devastating news, got into a taxi and headed to Johannesburg to identify his daughter's body and bear witness as relatives were cleaning up his daughter's blood from the parking lot pavement. He also performed a ritual to take his daughter's spirit home. Mudau was arrested while still in the hospital and charged with the murder of Lebogang Monene. But what followed left many in South Africa outraged. Due to his medical condition, he was granted bail of 5,000 rands in July of 2022, never actually setting foot in prison, leaving the hospital to go home to the care of his family while on bail. This is despite bail opposition from various organizations and Lebo's colleagues as well as her family. The state did not oppose the bail application, citing his quadriplegia and the lack of suitable detention facilities equipped to handle his medical needs. For the Monene family, this decision felt like a slap on the face. Lebo's brother Mpho expressed disbelief that her killer, despite admitting to the murder, could be allowed to live at home on bail. He feared that the justice system would give Mudau special treatment and that because he was now disabled by his own doing, he would never really face the true consequences of his doings.
As a family, we think it will not be fair for the guy to get a bail. He must just stay in police custody until this process comes to the end. Because if he gets the bail, obviously we will get a chance to stay with his family while our daughter is no more. We are not. She's not with us as we speak. But once he gets the bail, it means he will be with his family. So he mustn't get that chance.
There are those legal talks that he is likely to get bail, given that he's quadriplegic. He can't use his legs and feet, paralyzed from the neck. I just want to get your sentiments around that.
Look, we heard that last week, and I can assure you that we are not happy. We are not happy at all. The guy knew very well what he was doing. So even now, I asked someone, because we had a discussion with the investigating officer and the prosecutor, if I'm not mistaken. Then we showed them that we are not happy at all.
If you are intrigued by my storytelling, please like this video. That is one of the best ways that you can support this channel, along with watching the ads. In addition, if you have not yet subscribed, please consider subscribing to the channel. On the 17th of May, 2023, over a year after Lebo's murder, In the South Gauteng High Court, Modau pleaded guilty to the murder of Lebogang Monene. Prior to his sentencing, the judge wanted to understand from the Department of Correctional Services where and how they would be able to accommodate and detain a quadriplegic convict. Several witnesses who worked in various correctional services facilities were brought in as witnesses, and all of them indicated essentially that in South Africa there are currently no facilities that are equipped to detain and care for Modau.
That particular hospital, is it in a position to accommodate a quadriplegic?
The hospitals, they do investigation and diagnose the patient and manage the patient. Gauteng region, according to my knowledge, there is no facility, there is no correctional center that we can be able to manage a quadriplegic. We will experience a challenge in terms of management of a quadriplegic patient, and number two, in terms of accommodating, where is he going to be accommodated whilst we are still waiting for the medical parole.
So on the 29th of June 2023, Modau was sentenced to 25 years in prison. However, that sentence was wholly suspended for 5 years, meaning that he would serve no time in jail unless he committed another similar crime during this period. And, as I've already indicated, according to the medical professionals that have assessed him, is unable to move any part of his body except his neck from one side to another and his head. Therefore, it is highly unlikely that in the next 5 years he would be able to physically commit another crime of a similar nature. This essentially means that after 5 years, Modau is going to be considered to have served his 25-year sentence based on having served the 5-year sentence, and therefore he will not pay for the crime of killing Lebogang Monene. The court acknowledged that no South African prison facility could accommodate a quadriplegic with required constant 24-hour medical care. The judge accepted expert testimony and ruled that incarceration was not feasible in this case. However, the judge still had some harsh words for Modau before the sentencing.
The accused can only move his head left to right. In short, the accused requires care 24 hours of the day and needs assistance with every function, including eating, bathing, dressing, grooming, taking of his medication, changing of his diapers, and that he needs to be turned every 2 hours in order to prevent pressure sores. You are sentenced to 25 years direct imprisonment. However, there is not a correctional facility in the country that will accept you. Further, you have, through your actions, in effect, sentenced yourself to lifelong imprisonment in the confines of a wheelchair, and not as a paraplegic, but as a quadriplegic, being incapable of performing the most basic acts of human functioning. This is a punishment worse than the ultimate sentence of life imprisonment that this court could impose.
Mudau's sentence is suspended for 5 years.
And just like that, a man who shot the mother of his child in cold blood in front of hospital staff, the public, and hospital patients walked free from the court. The Monene family was devastated. Her father said that he would never forgive Mudau, even though Mudau has never asked for their forgiveness, has never acknowledged, has never asked to speak to the family to apologize. Although Lebogang's father also indicated that they had never met him while he was in this relationship with Lebogang. They only knew that he was the father of her last born, and that they at some point had a somewhat tumultuous relationship before she ended it, but they had never met him. He has never tried to apologize, has never tried to reach out to the family despite pleading guilty. And he also spoke about how Lebogang's death affected her children and the entire family, as she was the breadwinner supporting them. The Democratic Nurses Organization of South Africa, DENUSA, condemned the outcome of this court ruling. The organization questioned how nurses could feel safe at work if killers were not held accountable. Other civic groups also criticized the ruling, pointing to the continued vulnerability of women in abusive relationships, even those involved being members of the police force. You know, Lebo's murder sparked important conversations about the justice system in South Africa, domestic violence, and the responsibility of police officers who abuse their power and use state resources to commit unthinkable crimes. While her killer avoided a prison cell, as the judge eloquently stated, he lives with a lifelong paralysis, a fact that for some is justice enough, even though for her family, for her colleagues, and many in the public, the pain remains. And that is it for the heartbreaking story of Lebogang Monene. Please remember to like this video and consider subscribing. I'm also looking forward to hearing your thoughts about this case in the comments section, which always generates such interesting debates and perspectives about criminality in South Africa. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.